Hey guys, Rollout here, and welcome back to Builder's Block for another week. We're all trapped at home and have plenty of free time, so let's make the most of it and build some cool mocks. I've also been spending time putting together puzzles, snuggling with my cat, and lying in bed thinking about how I can restructure the Patreon page. I'm considering opening up the Discord to more people, adding a cheaper tier, maybe charging monthly rather than per episode, just to make the whole thing easier to understand. Even if you're not a patron, I could really use your feedback on all of this. How can I make it better for you, hypothetically? Please let me know down in the comments. Don't forget that you can also show support by liking this video and sharing Builder's Block with your friends. With all of that out of the way, y'all like BIONICLE? Because for the sake of this episode, I sure hope you like BIONICLE. At the beginning of the week, I was feeling a bit under the weather. I caught a bit of a cold and just didn't feel like building anything. I needed some rest. So instead, I took this as an opportunity to document a few BIONICLE creations I've had built for a while and never knew how to showcase. I didn't know if they should be on Rollout Reviews or on this channel, and I just didn't really know how to approach those videos, so I never did. But using Builder's Block as a vehicle, I can finally show them off. I am a huge BIONICLE fan. It is my favorite LEGO theme by far, but I am not much of a BIONICLE mockist. What you see in this video is pretty much the extent of what I have built, because creatively, my love lies with system. I like to build with traditional bricks, but I am a huge fan of the BIONICLE story, of the sets. I collect the sets, I surround myself with the lore, and occasionally there is a gap in that lore. There is a character that exists in the story and does not have a physical appearance. This is one of those characters. This is a Dark Hunter from 2005. He appears in one of the books and a single short story. He is the personal scribe of the Shadowed One, the leader of the Dark Hunters, and I haven't seen too many people build him, so I decided to build him myself. Now, he is sort of inspired by creepy Jim Henson puppets from things like The Dark Crystal. He's got a little bit of rat, a little bit of fox, and a little bit of reptile in him. He's kind of an amalgam of a lot of different creatures, and as far as his character design goes, I think he looks great. He turned out better than I could have possibly imagined. Now, this is technically a combiner model, albeit a very complicated one. I own many multiples of the Titan sets from 2005 so that I can have them displayed alongside their various combiner models. I have the Shadowed One, Centrak, and Voparak built simultaneously. And this guy here is built using all of the leftover parts. You can see 2 Kitangu eyes. You can see several lift arms that only come in a couple of the sets once. So he does have a very large parts pool, and that gave me a lot of freedom when it came to designing this character, but he is still technically limited by the Titans from 2005. That said, I have considered potentially simplifying him. I've always thought it weird that in 2005 there was never a combiner model of just Sidorak and Rudaka, and considering this guy's color scheme, I think it would be a cool experiment to just try building this character using only those two sets, and then it might be fun to compare both this version and that version if I ever decide to do it. But for now, like I said, this is my version of the recorder. I really like his tablet and his stylus. He kind of hunches over to scribble the words of the Shadowed One in stone. Here he is kind of standing up a little bit longer, a little bit more straight. While he can kind of crouch down and be very small and sniveling, he is quite a large character. All things considered. He has a ball joint in his waist, so he's very expressive. His mouth can open and close. Here he is compared to a typical Toa Metru build. In this case, it is my version of Toa Naho, another character from the story who never got a physical appearance. We don't actually know a whole lot about Naho, so this was another character that I had a whole lot of freedom with. I've decided to give her a cow. In fact, I've decided to turn her into kind of a Toa Metru version of Gali, just like how Toa Likan is kind of a Toa Metru version of Tahu. I think there's some nice symmetry there, so she has the hooks as well. But again, here is the recorder with a Toa Metru build. You can see he's about a head taller, but he does kind of crouch down and crawl a little bit, so he looks sort of weak and feeble compared to the Shadowed One. Next up is a version of Lariska that I have built. I thought, what would she look like if she were an official combiner model from 2005? So she is built using Hordika Matau, Vizorak, Kilarak, and Rahaga Iruni, all of the main retail green sets from 2005. And all things considered, I think she turned out pretty well, considering the limitations of these three relatively small sets. I like the way she looks. Of course, she has the mechanical arm. That's one of the reasons I decided to use these three sets, because of the silver and gray elements available in Matau and Iruni. I thought it would be a pretty cool motif to have her left and right arm look very, very different to sort of accentuate the idea that one of them is robotic. Of course, she is very much not a vortex, as it should be. A lot of people build Lariska to look like Rudaka, and she's not supposed to be the same species as Rudaka, and so I wanted to make that very clear. She actually looks a little bit like a Borok Va in some ways in the head. I think the way Matau's mask kind of fits into her chest is really, really cool, and it's kind of perfect the way those pieces fit together. I think Matau's mask is the only one of the Hordika masks that does this, which is kind of a happy coincidence. And then you have the rock she had as kind of shoulder armor. She has very long legs just because I had to work with the pieces that were given to me from Kilarak. In fact, I feel like she might be a little bit taller than I'd like her to be. Here she is next to my version of Toa Nidhiki, who I will talk about in a second. I feel like Lariska should be Toa height. And you can see that she's about a head taller than your average Toa. But again, the legs of Kilarak are just super long, and I had to work with those pieces. I also feel like lime green isn't an ideal color for Lariska. I feel like she should have something a little bit darker. Like if those pieces were in black or dark blue, I think it would be perfect. Also, the gray of the Vizorak body is a little bit distracting, but again, you have to make some sacrifices when you are building combiner models, and once again, all things considered, I think she looks pretty good. Let's talk about Nidhiki for a moment. You can see that I've decided to use the Kowalski instead of the Volitac. I have some issues with the Volitac design. I just don't think it fits Nidhiki. On top of that, the mask only comes in silver. Even though he canonically wears a Volitac, Nidhiki is never mentioned once to wear silver armor as a Toa. He is always described as wearing emerald armor. So he is green. Also, on top of that, obviously the Kowalski was designed to be Nidhiki's mask. Initially, Iruni and Norik were supposed to be Duma and Nidhiki before they switched gears and they became different characters. So this mask was very much designed to look like a Vaki head. And so I think it's only right, especially since it comes in green, to give Nidhiki the Kowalski instead of the Volitac, especially since in the story, it is a thing for masks to look one way and function in another way. This can still be a Volitac shaped like a Kowalski. And in a lot of ways, I feel like that fits Nidhiki as a character. The Kowalski is the mask of quick travel. You can teleport to any location you can see in your vision. And the Volitac is the mask of stealth. You can become slightly invisible and become incredibly silent. And so I think it's a cool idea for Nidhiki to trick people with that. They think that he has a Kowalski. They think he's quick traveling. So when he disappears, they look all around for him everywhere that he's not, which is actually right in front of them, just invisible. I think that's a really cool idea, and I think it justifies the use of the Kowalski in this case. Next up is my version of Toa Helryx, the first Toa and the leader of the Order of Mata Nui. This is not a combiner model, but I did build her based on your typical Glatorian or Inika build, and I have a storyline justification for all of this. It makes sense. I can explain it if you want me to. If you know nothing about BIONICLE, the next couple minutes are going to be a trip for you because there's a whole lot of jargon in here. Prepare yourself. The short version of it is that the Glatorian are what the great beings based the Toa off of, and Helryx is the first Toa that they designed, so obviously it would have some similarities. But I think there's further evidence in the fact that the great beings also programmed the Red Star, and the Red Star has this protocol where it can transform Matoran into Toa using lightning and bypassing all of the typical Toa transformation procedures. Usually, a Matoran would turn into what they imagine a Toa looks like. They would turn into their vision of a hero, but the Red Star bypassed it with whatever the great beings programmed into it. And so as I see it, the first Toa pretty much looked like the Inika sans the organic mask and lightning powers, and the Inika look a little bit like Glatorian. So there you go. That is my reasoning behind it. You can see that my version of Helryx here has a very simple mace and a very simple shield. I see her as kind of a rough and tumble, war-torn character. She has nothing fancy. She just has tools to get the job done. She will happily beat in the mask of a Makuta if it's for the greater good. Specifically, Takanuva mentions that her armor is strange to him, that her mask is something he has never seen before, so I gave her armor of sets that aren't Bionicle. Her mask of psychometry is a Hero Factory helmet. Breeze's mask from brain attack, I think. One of the few Hero Factory helmets that I think works really well as a Bionicle mask. And then she also has some Knight's Kingdom armor, which happily comes in flat silver, the same color as her mask and the Hordika chest armor. So I think that looks great all together. Aside from that, she does have a pretty simple build. You can see that you can store her shield on her back so that she can kind of articulate with her other arm, and she can, summon tidal waves and call forces and send people into battle, because she is the leader of the Bionicle Secret Service. Basically, she's ordering a lot of people around. Here she is compared to another typical Toa Metru build, and you can see that the size difference actually isn't too different. She's a little bit taller than your average Toa, but not by much, and that kind of surprises me considering how tall it seems Glatorian and the Inika are. But this on the left is my version of Toa Tuyet. I gave her the Trans Blue Ruru from 2001. I think that works really well as her mask of intangibility. It's kind of slightly sinister, especially with those red eyes behind it. So even though, again, we never got an official mask of intangibility, I think this is the next best thing. She has one of the Krika spike pieces from the Jet Tracks as her barbed broadsword. Again, I think that is the best piece for it, and then I gave her a crystal for her Nui stone. So yeah, here you go, just a couple of murderous, mentally deranged, superpowered Toa of water. But that just about wraps up this tangent we've been going on, this Bionicle field trip. If you are a fan of Bionicle, I hope you've enjoyed it, but for the rest of the week, I got back on track building more traditional system creations, so let's start taking a look at those. Over the next few days, I tried just sort of closing my eyes and coming up with a quick idea, and then pursuing that first instinct. So on the first day, I thought of a pirate ship, and of course, I had to make it a little bit more interesting, so I gave it some spacefaring equipment and made it a space pirate ship. And this is just really pleasing to look at. The shape of the hull, the micro details of the mast, the space greebling on the flight tech. It just looks really, really nice in my opinion. The silver and the grays kind of mixing together, those Iron Man thruster pieces, which I'd really like to use more of. Just some really pleasing greebles on the bottom and some really, really nice colors. You can't go wrong. On the next day, I thought of a stag, and so I built this deer mech, which I think looks really, really cool. I imagine this as kind of a utility mech for pulling things and pushing things. It's not entirely anatomically correct, but it doesn't need to be. It's a robot. The antlers kind of come out the side of the head rather than the top, but oh well. It does have a cockpit on the top there, and then kind of this rig on its back. I didn't really know what the purpose of that was at the time. I just thought it looked cool, but I can imagine you kind of rigging things to it so that this can kind of haul machinery. That's kind of a cool idea. I really, really continue to love these rounded elements you can see used throughout all of his legs. They just make things like this too easy, and I absolutely love it. And then, of course, you have the detail work on his antlers, which use a lot of the same techniques that I used in my mini Lego Frenzy for Barricade. On the next day, I just thought of purple hair. I just wanted to build a character with purple hair. And so I built this witch character. This is kind of a little bit more traditional, just sort of a brick-built statue. Not something I'm used to, but something I'd like to explore a little bit more. I tried to put her in kind of this interesting pose here with her leg up. I wanted to do something more interesting with the shape of her dress, then just have it build all the way down to the bottom. Her arms are out. She has this witch hat, and again, she's got the purple hair, so you can check that box off. Be honest, how many of you skipped to the end? When you get me going about BIONICLE, sometimes I just can't stop. Believe me, this episode could have been over an hour long if I hadn't restrained myself. You're welcome for that. For one reason or another, the state of the world right now has made it kind of hard for me to find time to finish the videos for my next Transformer, so stay patient. I know you're all well experienced in waiting on me, and I appreciate that. Special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, especially the leader class patrons, Cruciferous Belligerents, Toa Ventron, and Valraven. Until next week, this has been Rollout, signing off.